What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the RPM Garage YouTube channel, and of course, welcome back to another episode of Review Mondays. Now, I am with a truly special car. It's a 2020 Jeep Gladiator, and it has been modified from bumper to bumper in so many ways, and I am very excited to talk about it. But before we do, I have to take a second to talk about myself. Now, if you can't tell, my voice is a bit different than usual, and that is only because I have a serious case of allergies right now. I feel perfectly fine, but my voice is a bit scratchy, my throat is a bit sore, and I've been, dealing with that a little bit. But I promise this video will be just as good as every other one, if not better, because, as I said, we are standing next to a seriously awesome truck. Now, there are a lot of things I want to talk about, so we will obviously get into that in just a second. But before we do, I have to ask each and every one of you to take a second right now and subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with a friend. Be bold. Do it now. I'm all for it. And with that said, let's dive in.
Been trying to change what I've been trying to say. Words don't come straight from my head to my mouth. It's such a shame that it fell out of place. Was never me that was bringing you down.
As you could probably tell from the montage you just watched, there are a ton of very cool upgrades that have been done to the exterior of this truck, and I'm very excited to spend the next few minutes talking about all of them. There is one, though, that I want to start with, and that is this set of gigantic wheels next to me. Now, for a bit of reference, I am 6 foot 2 inches tall. I say that, my doctor says that, and most importantly and most believably, my Tinder profile says that. So, for more exact measurements, these are 40-inch all-terrain tires wrapped around 26-inch Forgiato, not Forgiato, forged wheels. Now, for reference, obviously, as we come back to my height, these come up to my waist as someone who is 6 foot 2. So these are obviously very huge, and they absolutely lift this truck up. But they are not the only things attached to this truck that raise its height just a little bit. The other major component that raises this truck's height even more is the Mopar Accessory Giant 2-inch lift kit. Now, this lift kit is made up largely of Fox gear, so most of the suspension underneath this truck is Fox shocks, struts, and various components. And it makes this truck both very smooth and comfortable to ride in, as well as very capable of handling a bit of off-road, which obviously helps when you've got some very grippy all-terrain tires. Now, these are not the only upgrades that have been done. As you may or may not have noticed, there is an awesome VKS aftermarket front bumper, and it looks amazing, especially because it has been painted in the same gloss black as this amazing Jeep to my right and, well, kind of behind me. The other major upgrade that you may or may not have noticed are these DV8, yes, DV8, inner fender flares that add just a little bit more aggression to the truck and help with clearance when it comes to these wheels, because these are very large wheels indeed. One thing you may or may not have noticed in the video as well is the Fab Speed spare wheel mount that has been bolted into the bed of the truck. Now, there is not a spare wheel in there at the moment, but if you were to add a fifth wheel to this collection, you could mount it right there to the Jeep. The last thing that I do want to talk about is this roof. Now, the Jeep's roof is, believe it or not, a soft top, which I think is one of the biggest benefits that this Jeep could have, because quite frankly, having a Jeep in essence means that you are going to be able to expose yourself to the elements. You can pull off the doors, pull down the windshield, and on good Jeeps, take the top off. And this is a very good Jeep indeed, because you are able to do just that. Now, I haven't done that myself just yet, but I am very much looking forward to the opportunity to take all of the things off of this Jeep and be in the natural elements while I drive around, because this thing looks amazing like that and feels probably even better. I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, before we go anywhere else, we have to talk about the engine. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Usually at this segment of the video, I am talking about whatever is powering the car or truck that I'm reviewing at that day, and I usually have the camera pointing down into the engine bay while I am talking. However, because this has a mostly stock engine, and more importantly, because I do not feel like raising my camera up 7,000 feet higher on a tripod so it can look down into this engine bay, I'm instead going to stand here so you can continue to look at this amazing exterior while I talk about the engine under the hood. This Jeep is powered by a 3.6 liter V6 engine that produces 285 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque, which is more than enough, especially given the insane suspension and of course the amazingly grippy tires that this truck has. Now, this power is passed through an 8-speed automatic transmission to either the rear wheels or all four wheels. Now, it is crucial that I point out and exaggerate just how much of a four-wheel drive car / truck that this amazing thing is. It is more than capable of handling anything off-road, and obviously with the addition, like I said, of the grippy tires and the aggressive suspension, it is more than capable of handling any form of off-road and most forms of terrain. With that in mind, of course, it is a stock 3.6 liter V6, so I will not be doing a startup at the end of the video. Instead, I will probably do some other form of entertainment, so be sure to stick around for that once I decide what I'm going to do. Last but not least, what else is cool about this Jeep is the fact that you obviously have the ability to choose between two-wheel and four-wheel drive, which is something I love about Jeeps and most 4x4s in general, is the ability to, if you so choose, just drive in two-wheel drive for more calm and soothing, quiet driving, and of course, to go to four-wheel drive for the more aggressive off-roading, or if you need it for getting over some sort of obstacle, which is why it is so great. Last time I'm going to say this, I promise, to have the suspension and the tires. Speaking of things I've said far too often, it was brought to my attention by myself while I was editing the video that I said the phrase "of course" probably 10 times in one segment and about 30 times throughout the entirety of our Aston Martin review. I promise not to do that again, and I know I've already said it once or twice in this video, but I'm going to try to keep it at a minimum, as well as pretty much every other key turn of phrase that I tend to use. So with that in mind, let's dive into the interior, and then we'll finish up this video and we can talk about just how great this thing is altogether. Shooting this clip alone, I've gotten in and out of this interior far many more times than I'd like to talk about. And while I'm okay with that, it isn't something I want to show on camera. So I am very grateful that I do have full editing privileges over this video. However, I'm not here to talk about my editing privileges. I'm here because I am actually in the interior of a car for the first time in what feels like months. And for you viewers, it has been months indeed. Now, the first thing I truly love about this interior are these seats. Now, these are very plush, very comfortable leather seats, and they are awesome to sit in, regardless of if you're sitting in them correctly or not. And as in the case of me, I am not, although I have before, and it is very comfortable in this position as well. Now, there are a lot of cool features and quirks with this car, but before we talk about any of the quirks, I do want to talk about the features. As I mentioned before, the option to switch between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive is available on this Jeep, and of course that is controlled in the interior, and that is controlled more specifically by this gear shift lever right here. And I am aware that I just said of course again, still trying to keep it to a minimum. The other thing is that this does have a normal gear selector as well for the automatic transmission, which interestingly is also where the manual semi-automatic shifter is as well, and it does allow you to do sequential gear shifting, which is very nice, and it is relevant because I am going to point out a quirk later on in the video. The last key feature of this Jeep is its infotainment system, and as you'd expect with any modern car, this car does come with a very nice infotainment display. Some of the features in it include a rear camera, Bluetooth, phone connectivity, and some other cool features, but it doesn't have navigation, which is very, very interesting to me, although I don't find it too problematic because I do believe that the majority of Jeep owners are relatively directionally inclined, and this does come with a compass in it as well. So if you do find yourself completely lost and without any reference for cardinal directions, you do at least have that. So that is kind of a quirk, but it is also a feature as well. But diving into the quirks specifically, there are two that I really wanted to talk about, and both of them relate to the audio. The first is the interesting feature that I was not aware of until today when I was first exploring this Jeep before I reviewed it. Now this feature, as some Jeep and Dodge owners may be aware, is that this vehicle will respond by increasing or decreasing the volume relative to the speed at which you are traveling. So if you accelerate suddenly or if you accelerate at high volume of speed, you will have an increase in volume. And of course, if you decelerate, then you will have a decrease in volume as well, which is very, very fascinating to me because it isn't something I ever thought of any manufacturer doing, but I do find it very, very interesting. Speaking of other interesting things that Jeep has done, they've put the volume controls in a very unusual place, at least in my experiences. Now, when I think of volume controls, they're typically in one or two or both of them places. The first place is here in this area where you'd normally expect to find some form of volume knob to control your radio volume. The other place is on the steering wheel, and when I think of steering wheel controls, I typically think of them on the front of the steering wheel, as I'm sure most people do, although I know they obviously make them in the back. But for volume, I would expect that that is pretty typically at the front. However, this is an exception to that, and Jeep has placed the volume controls at the back of the steering wheel right here, as well as I think a play and pause button, although I've yet to experiment with it enough to find out exactly which it does. And I think that's pretty cool, if a bit unusual, and it does tie in now to the point of there not being paddle shifters, instead the gear selector and the sequential automatic transmission shifting being done down here instead of here, because this is where the volume controls are. However, that is all I really have to say about the interior, and you truly do have to experience it for yourself. So next time you're ever at RPM Garage, please come check this Jeep out because it is so very nice to be in, and I can't urge you enough to do so. With that in mind, let's go wrap up this video, and then we'll figure out some cool thing to do at the end, so you stick around and watch until then. For some reason, I've done more takes on this clip than I have any other, so I'm going to try to make this attempt short and sweet. And I want to thank each and every single one of you today for taking the time to watch this video. It means a ton to both myself and everyone at RPM Garage that you do actively participate in our social media. Now, as a discerning viewer of the RPM Garage YouTube channel, you might expect the cars we show to be for sale, and up until this point, they all have been, but this is an interesting car. We are going to hold on to it for a little while because it is so new, so unique, and so very, very cool. So with that in mind, I cannot give you a price that it is actively listed for because it's not actively listed, and if that is changing, I will be sure to put that in the description below. Speaking of things in the description, I also highly urge you to go check out our Instagram, our TikTok, and our Facebook because we just hit 1 million likes on TikTok. We are so close to 20,000 followers on Instagram, and quite frankly, you just should go check out our Facebook and our inventory, which will also be linked below as well. Last but not least, and perhaps most importantly, we do finally, after months of me promising it, have merch in stock and available, and that should be available online around the same time as this video going live, if not about a week and a half after this. So with that in mind, go check that out as well because we would love to see everyone rocking some awesome RPM merchandise. Lastly, please, please, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course share everything with a friend because it means the absolute world to me when we are able to connect with a greater audience and when RPM Garage is able to become a better known brand. It means a ton, and I really, really hope that we'll be able to get to that point. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.